I'm Jenny. 6 weeks ago, I sat in the boardroom of our family's medical supply company, MedPro Innovations, facing my siblings in a showdown that would change everything. They'd popped the champagne to celebrate kicking me out as CEO, but little did they know, I was about to turn the tables. As I sipped the Dom Perignon they'd so eagerly prepared, I couldn't help but reflect on how we'd gotten here. Our father, Henry Thompson, was a visionary. He'd started MedPro Innovations from scratch in 1990 with just a small rented storage unit and a dream. He'd spent long hours delivering medical equipment to local clinics, slowly building the company into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. By the time he passed away last year, we had contracts across 4 states and a revenue of $70 million. I'd been by Dad's side since I could remember. He used to say, "Jenny has a head for business. She sees opportunities where others see problems." While my siblings went their own ways, I pursued an MBA at Harvard Business School and then came straight back to MedPro. My older brother, Alex, became a high-end real estate agent. He always thought he was too sophisticated for the day-to-day operations of the company. My sister, Lily, opened a chain of beauty salons, funded by Dad, but she never paid him back a single cent. And my younger brother, Ethan, was constantly starting new tech startups, each one crashing and burning, with Dad bailing him out every time. When Dad got sick with lung cancer, it was a fast and cruel fight. One evening at a family dinner, Dad could barely eat. Alex suddenly announced, "We should be more involved in the company. It's our family legacy." Lily quickly agreed, probably already calculating her share of the inheritance. Ethan chimed in with his usual family first line, the same one he used when asking Dad for money. Dad looked at me across the table, and I knew we were on the same page. But he just nodded and said, "We'll talk about it when I'm better." We both knew he wasn't going to get better. The next day, Dad called me into his study. He was sitting in his chair, weak but still sharp as a tack. "They're like vultures circling," he said bluntly. I replied, "Let's be honest, Alex just sees dollar signs. Lily wants to sell the company for a quick profit. And Ethan probably has plans to embezzle." He pulled out a folder from his desk. "But you, Jenny. You've dedicated your life to this company. You know every employee, every client, and every supply chain issue." I reminded him, "We're all equal shareholders, 25% each." He slid the folder over to me. "Not anymore. I'm transferring my shares to you through our holding company in Nevada." I stared at the documents in shock. "Dad, this will give me 51%. He nodded. "Controlling interest. They'll still have their 25% each, but you'll have the final say." I was worried. "They'll contest it." He smiled grimly. "Let them try." I had 3 doctors certify my mental competence, and the whole transfer was videotaped with 2 lawyers present. I even had a psychologist do a cognitive test on camera. I scored higher than most 35-year-olds. I asked him, "Why me?" He leaned forward. "Because you're the only one who's never taken a handout, never missed a day of work, and never treated the company like a piggy bank. And you're the only one who cares about the employees." Alex would cut their benefits, Lily would sell to the highest bidder, and Ethan would bankrupt us in a year. I asked when I should tell them. He said, "Don't. Let them show their true colors first." 2 months later, Dad passed away. I held his hand as he took his last breath, whispering sales figures and market trends because that's what comforted him. My siblings showed up later, with their tears and their lawyers. The will reading was straightforward. The house was to be sold, and the proceeds would be split equally. Equal partners. They never asked about the holding company. They assumed they knew all of Dad's assets. For 3 months, I let them play their games. Alex immediately started pushing for cost-cutting measures, which really meant slashing employee health insurance. Lily brought in consultants to assess the company's market value, clearly looking for a buyer. Ethan hired his friend as a software developer at a sky-high salary, but the friend never actually showed up to work. I documented every email, every proposal, and every attempt to strip the company. Then, last Tuesday, I arrived at the office at 7 a.m. As usual. The security guard, Tom, who'd been with the company for 12 years, looked uncomfortable. "Morning, Miss Thompson. Your siblings are in the boardroom. They asked me not to tell you they were here early." I thanked him and gave him his usual coffee, black with 1 sugar. "Don't worry about it." I went to my office first and pulled up the holding company documents on my phone. Then, I walked into the boardroom with my briefcase. My siblings were sitting on one side of the table, looking like a tribunal. A champagne bucket was prominently placed on the sideboard. "Jenny," Alex said formally. "Please sit." I took my usual seat at the head of the table, where Dad used to sit. They exchanged glances. "We need to discuss your future with the company," Lily began. "Oh," I said calmly. "Your management style isn't working," Ethan added, reading from prepared notes. "You're too old-fashioned. The company needs new leadership, a new vision." I sipped my water. "And you 3 have a proposal?" Lily pulled out official-looking documents. "We've taken a vote. As majority shareholders with 75% of the company, we've decided to remove you as CEO." The vote was unanimous. Ethan said proudly, "You're out of Dad's company. We've chosen Lily as the interim CEO while we find someone with real vision." They leaned back, satisfied, and Ethan was already eyeing the champagne. I pulled out my phone. "Interesting vote. Did you check the corporate bylaws before this meeting?" Alex scoffed. "Shareholders with over 50% can make executive decisions." I opened the Nevada Holding Company app. "But how much do you 3 actually control?" Lily said slowly, 75%, 25% each. "You know this." I turned my phone to show them the shareholder registry. "Actually, you control 49%. I control 51%. There was a moment of silence. Alex grabbed the phone. "That's impossible. Dad's will distributed his shares equally." I explained, Dad's controlling interest in MedPro was held through Thompson Holdings, LLC in Nevada. He transferred those shares to me before he died. Ethan whispered, "You're lying." I said, "Check the state records. It's all public." I pulled out hard copies from my briefcase. The transfer is dated 6 months ago, verified by 3 doctors, 2 lawyers, and a psychological evaluation of Dad's mental competence. Lily's face went white. "You knew. You've known this whole time." I said, "I wanted to see what you'd do with equal power. Now I know." "Alex, you tried to cut healthcare for our employees." "Lily, you've been shopping the company to private equity firms." "Ethan, your friend has been paid $60,000 and hasn't done a single day of work." They tried to deny it, but I had the evidence. I stood up. "As the majority shareholder, I don't need to prove anything. I just need to vote. And I'm voting to terminate all 3 of you, effective immediately." They were in shock. Alex shouted, "You can't do this. We're family." I replied, "Family supports each other. Family works together. You tried to vote me out of the company Dad built. You'll keep your shares and get quarterly dividends, but your days of using the company as your personal ATM are over." Alex threatened to sue. I said, "With what money? I know how much debt each of you is in." "Alex, you have a mortgage and a pending lawsuit from a client." "Lily, your salons are losing money." "Ethan, you owe money to half the town." Lily realized what had happened. "You and Dad planned this." I said, "Dad planned it. I just executed it." I walked over to the champagne bucket. "Mind if I?" I popped the cork and poured myself a glass as they sat in stunned silence. I told them, security will escort you out. Your personal items will be shipped. Your company cards are cancelled, and your email access ends in 30 minutes. Ethan pleaded, we're family. I took a sip of champagne. Family doesn't act like this. Lily asked, what are we supposed to do? I said, go back to what you were doing before you decided to be corporate raiders. Alex, you have a real estate business. Lily, you have salons to run. Ethan, maybe get a real job. Alex tried one last time. The employees won't stand for this. They respect me. I interrupted, the employees are happy. I told the senior staff this morning. Tom practically cheered. People prefer a CEO who knows their names. Security arrived and escorted them out. As Lily turned back and asked, was any of it real? Your grief? Your shock at the will reading? I said, my grief was real. Dad was everything to me. But shock? No. I knew what he left me, a test, and you all failed. They left in silence, and their champagne celebration turned into a termination toast. Of course, they filed lawsuits. Each of them hired their own lawyers, but corporate law is clear. The judge dismissed all their claims in the preliminary hearings. Alex's real estate business took a hit because of his attempt to cut employee benefits. Lily's salons closed within a month without Dad's financial support, and she's now working as a beautician at a local spa. Ethan moved back in with our mother, and she finally cut off his allowance after learning about his embezzlement attempt. As for MedPro Innovations, we're thriving. I promoted employees who'd worked with Dad for years. I restored the healthcare benefits Alex tried to cut, canceled the private equity meetings Lily had set up, and recovered the money Ethan stole. Last week, I received a letter from Alex. Jenny, I understand now. Dad gave you control because you loved the company more. We saw inheritance, you saw responsibility. I'm sorry. I haven't replied yet. Maybe someday when the wounds heal, when they understand that Dad's legacy isn't just about money but about a mission to be continued. I keep the empty champagne bottle on my office shelf with a small plaque that says, in memory of Henry Thompson, who knew the difference between shares and caring. Every morning, I walk through the warehouse, greeting workers by name. I review purchase orders, negotiate with suppliers, and meet with hospital administrators. I do the work my siblings thought was beneath them because that's what 51% really means: responsibility, purpose, and a commitment to carry on Dad's legacy. And sometimes, late at night when I'm still at the office, I swear I can hear Dad's voice saying, "Good job, Jenny. You passed the test." The champagne was great, but the look on their faces when they realized they'd voted themselves out of power? That was priceless.